Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll be talking a little bit about the Power BI monitoring, about Power BI REST API or Fabric REST API right now, because it's going into the Fabric direction, to putting all of this data into the small, compact data warehouse and getting it back again in Power BI. So this is very shortly what will be done, the short agenda. So the introduction, I will talk a little bit about the governance and adoption challenges in Power BI. Later, I will go into the architecture, one of the possible architectures of the solution that I will be presenting today, a little bit about Power BI REST API calls, how to do it, the Graph API calls as well. We'll dive into the structure of the data warehouse. The structure of the data warehouse will be presented in Power BI as a set of the fact tables and dimensions that you can create. And finally, we'll go also through the reports about your Power BI adoption, actions of your users, tenant settings, and so on. Finally, I will share a few stories where is the return on investment in such tools. Okay, so a few words about myself. So, Michał Michael Debski. I'm one of the founders of Astral Forest, 12 years, 13 years actually right now of experience BI data, working mainly in Azure, mainly in Power BI, but I started with MicroStrategy as well. And what can I do? Well, what can I tell more? I love what I'm doing. Okay, so on the private side, I am a huge dog lover, sidehunt lover. I know that you guys from the Gulf countries, you have wonderful dogs as well. The Saluki, I love them as well. Mine is a little bit different, but the same type. Okay, so let's go to the Power BI governance and adoption challenges, and I group them into the three main categories. So one of them is governance and admin, second is adoption, and the third one, finances. Let's focus on the governance and admin part. So, if you are going to the Fabric pane on our Power BI admin panel, anything like this, the first thing is that you don't know how many unused reports do you have. Right now, it's getting a little bit better because at least in some recent versions of Power BI or Fabric admin pane, you can already see how many reports you have. So it's getting a little bit better, but still you don't know what reports are used, what reports are unused, what objects are used, unused, and so on. And even worse, in Power BI, you can give the access to the reports or the Fabric object in so many different ways. Yet it's extremely difficult to control who can access these objects and how. What are the exact privileges or roles that the people are having to access a report? Because you can give the access to the report on the individual level, you can give the access to the report or the object on the entry group level. But in Power BI, you cannot see actually who is inside the group, and the groups are dynamic. You can give the access to the application level, audience level right now, domain. You can give on the individual report level. You can also give the build permissions on the semantic model. So it's a little bit chaotic. And, as a Power BI admin or the owner of the workspace, you're constantly getting the emails from the users asking to give them particular privilege. And if you are following this path set up by Microsoft, which is very easy, you will be assigning the privileges on the individual level, not the group level. So it can be a little bit chaotic. The way I'm seeing it, if you are, if you have like a huge Power BI Fabric deployment, you have hundreds, thousands of users and hundreds, thousands of reports. It's a little bit like a garden. And in order for a garden to be functional, it must be well kept. It must be groomed. So you must know where are the paths, what kind of inventory of the trees, plants do you have, and you mustn't allow, these wild plants, trees coming to your garden and spoiling them. So this is the role of the governments and the administration, and it's not that easy to settle. The other thing is that if you don't have proper governance process, and lots of organizations didn't have. Right now, it's coming as one of the priorities. You don't know who are the owners of the reports, and if you do not know who is the owner of the report, it's very difficult to tackle the situation. What to do about the report when, for example, the data source is changing, or another change happens. Also about the semantic models refreshes, you should know which ones are the troublemakers, because maybe you used to have like the semantic model that was behaving very nicely. It used to be executing under 30 minutes, but right now suddenly something is like consuming your resources on your resources of your uh, dedicated capacity or the resources of the underlying data layer, because the views that they were prepared for your report that were very compact like 2, 3, 4 years ago, but they grew bigger and they need some grooming. Typical also approach right now is that you should have this blended approach to Power BI. So you have like the self-service part and also the enterprise part. And you should know how your self-service is doing. Do you have this Wild West approach with lots of tons of reports being created everywhere? Or maybe you are doing something and, for example, promoting this kind of self-service report to the enterprise zone once they hit certain quota of the users, views, some kind of the rule. Every single company works also with the external consultants, advisors. They are very often also given the rights to see your data. But maybe you should have also the process of checking periodically if the users that used to have the access 2 or 3 years ago are not on the list anymore, because maybe they shouldn't have too much access right now after like 2, 3, 4 years. So those are like the governance and administration perspective challenges. But you have also the adoption challenges, because right now, it's been like a 5 days. Power BI price is a little bit higher than it used to be. Still, it's extremely cheap solution when you compare to the other solutions at the market like Looker, Tableau, MicroStrategy, whatever. But it gets expensive. And if you have 12,000 users, 20,000 of users, and maybe for some of them you are paying also like the named license, you should care about them and how they are using the reports. If they are actively going to the Power BI and checking them, because also you are investing not only in the licenses, but you're investing in the development of all data environment. And the thing is that it should be used. It should be used, and it should be also used in the governed way. So one of the KPIs that I like, how many actions are performed across your all tenant on your certified objects. The certified objects means that those reports, those semantic models, receive this label of being certified because they were accepted by, let's say, Power BI architect, because the quality of the data structures is good. They were also confirmed by the business owners because the business rules that are inside also are confirmed they are okay. So they should be used across all your organization, all your company, because they contain like the trustful data, trustful information. The other thing is also that in every single organization, your top 20% of the data assets will generate 80% of the traffic. So you should also know what are your most crucial data assets to pay special attention on them, to their backup. Also, in case of any kind of the migration, for example, let's say that you are migrating your on-premise assets to cloud, to Databricks, Snowflake, this indicator will tell you which fact tables, which data sources should be migrated the first time, because they are the most important ones, and maybe which one of them should be completely forgotten because they are not used anymore. They used to be used like 5, 10 years ago, but no any longer. The most frequently used reports also are nice information, because you can do just the analysis why those reports were successful. Maybe there are some special design practices applied over there. You can also talk with the users of these reports, ask them the questions, and evolve the standards that you already have to make them more engaging and also better suiting the population of your organization. The other thing is also that you should follow the progress of the report usage. So let's say that right now you are starting like 30% of your organization uses actively the reports, at least one per month. A good thing would be, if you are going to change your organization to be more data driven, to set up a goal of having like 50% of your organization using the data assets 2 years from now. This is ambitious, but still you need to have a tool to track this adoption and to focus how this adoption is growing. So those are the adoption aspects. The third one are the finances. So in total, how much do you spend on licenses? Can you save some money? Those are a few things, but also more important, in my opinion, showback and chargeback reports. So you can, for example, tell a particular department that their users paying or should be paying like $12,000 monthly, $5,000. This is the cost. This is the price that they are paying. They're being charged for the consumption of the data. Why it's important? Because it makes them it gives them some kind of the pressure and also the information that they should care, because nothing comes free of charge, and they should be more reasonable about their demands, about their plans regarding the data, because they should focus on the things that are really providing the value for them. Okay, so here we covered a little bit those challenges, and right now let's take a look about the monitoring of the Power BI activities, the tenant setups, and the default ways. So for example, I put here like the two screens. One of them is the feature usage and adoption from Fabric right now, and the usage metrics, the classical good usage metrics from Power BI service. So one of the main drawbacks is that you don't really have the historical data, because the data sources that you have in Power BI, the classical ones, are limited to the 30 days of the last activities. So if you have only 30 days of the last activities, you cannot, for example, do the year comparison. You cannot compare your January of this year with the January of the preceding year and tell, okay, so I have more active users this year than I used to have the preceding year. I find that this is really really big draw. Reporting itself is pretty basic, and you don't really know how all of these measures are calculated, because it's kind of a black box, and you can only put your trust on it that it's calculated correctly. This limited time frame also makes it that you cannot observe the trends. You cannot compare to the previous periods, like month over month as well. And it's rather difficult to reason out of a single workspace. So this is one thing. And another thing is also that those reports cannot answer the very simple question, what are the top reports used by key account managers in the EMEA region, for example. You are also missing the information about the accesses and the licenses, and you cannot really find unused or rarely used objects and to do the cleanup of your platform. From my perspective also, it's a little bit lacking good, nice star schema data model, that can be extended with the different data assets. Like for example, ENPS surveys that you can ask your users, how do they like your data in the right direction, or maybe not in the best one. This kind of feedback should be collected, I believe, once per year, maybe, so you know if you are moving quick enough to support your organization with the data. Okay, so I just shared like the main drawbacks, and right now I will present the solution to those drawbacks. So here you can see like one of the possible architectures of the Power BI monitoring. This is the one that I'm using, and I'm very comfortable and proficient with this, because I've been working on this like since 2017, I believe, 2018. It evolved. But the thing is that you have the main two data sources. It does not change a lot. So you have Power BI REST API, and from Power BI REST API, you are getting the information about all the user activities and also the metadata of the objects. The metadata of the objects, like the connections between workspaces, the connections between reports, semantic models, applications, and so on. And the second data source is the Graph API. And from Graph API, you get the information like about the entry ID groups that are existing within your Power BI ecosystem, and who belongs to which data, who belongs to which entry ID group, and also about the licenses. That are attributed on the user level. So you can know, for example, that one of your users is attributed like the Pro license or Power BI Premium per user license. So two main data sources. Later you have the orchestrator. In this case, is Azure Data Factory, Key Vault, with which holds the connections and the passwords to service principals, because service principals are used to obtain the information from those two APIs. And later you can have Azure SQL DB with all full the ETL process inside it and the nicely prepared schema to be later passed into Power BI. Of course, you can do more or less the same within Fabric right now. You can also do the same using, for example, Snowflake and Airflow and dbt. It's up to you, but the schema will always be more or less the same. So let's move right now to this part of the data acquisition and the data collection. So as I mentioned, first we have Power BI REST API. And in order to do this, you must have the service principal, and you must go to admin portal of your Fabric tenant, and you should assign the groups with your service principals into the permissions that you can see here on the screen. So a service principal actually can be used to get the information from your Fabric APIs, and also that service principal actually can read this admin API as well, plus also the information about the detailed metadata. This one is particularly interesting if you want to get the information about your semantic models, role-level security, and so on. What kind of information can you get from here? I listed all of the items here. Basically, you can get everything which exists within your Power BI or Fabric tenant. But I think that the last time I checked, that there were like, okay, I will tell you a little bit later about this. This list is being extended all the time, because right now what is happening, Power BI the REST API is like being extended, let's say, or merged with Fabric API, and more items from Fabric also are appearing within this API. This is just my theory, but I suppose that Microsoft is reusing the actively existing Power BI REST API to pack more items from Fabric. Two things that you should pay attention one additional thing that you should pay attention to is this particular API call. It's admin workspace info get scan results. This is my favorite one because it allows you to get the information about all objects within one workspace in one run. Why is it important? Because I think it was last year in February, Microsoft started enforcing the number of the API calls per hour that you can do in your tenant. I think that previous to 2024 it wasn't enforced, but starting in February 2024 they enforced that the maximum number of the queries is like 400 or 500. So if you have lots of items, you will spend like the hours or the days getting all of this information. But if you use this one trick and you get all of this information from your workspace using this particular call, it can go pretty smoothly. So this is to remember. And more or less the same about the Graph API. So from Graph API, once again, you can get entry ID groups, entry ID group members, licenses, and what I like a lot, user attributes like the roles, departments, job positions, geography, etc. Basically, the better maintained is your Graph API with about the information about the users within your company, the more analytical value it can provide also to you. In your case, one of my cases, for example, we were comparing the activity of the group of the users that were working in the two continents, in New Zealand and in the USA. We are regarding the activities regarding the consumption of the reports that were used in the factories. They were used in the factories because they needed to observe overall equipment efficiency, and we treated this like the A/B test. But the key was this information, like the geography, because we wanted it to be focused on, as I told you, New Zealand and the USA. One thing to consider also, if you're starting doing so, be careful, because at the beginning you can start getting all the information about your entry ID and groups, and it can bring really high volume to your database. So the good practice is to limit the number of the entry ID groups that you are observing and getting the information from only to the groups that actually are used in your Power BI or Fabric tenant. Okay, so this was about the data acquisition. Right now, a short information about the data transformation. You should always follow the nice pattern. Right now it's called medallion architecture with bronze, silver, gold. Personally, I don't care how you're calling those layers. The good practice is to have them. The concept is much older than that Databricks. It gets back to the 90s, I believe, or even earlier. But the thing is that in the raw data, you will get these JSON-like structures from the API calls. And you will need to unnest them and put all of them into nice proper table structures, so which is happening here. Based on this, later you can just prepare your fact and dimension models. So this is the way that you should follow, and you can see also the screen a few fact tables and some silver layers elements here. I will show you just in a minute a little bit more about these aspects. Okay, so right now this is the end of the theory. I will show you like a few information about the data models itself. So I believe that you can see my Power BI and the schemas side Power BI. You can get inspired by all of this. So the first thing is that we have like the main fact table, which is called fact activity events. And in this fact activity events, you have the perfect register of all the actions performed by all the users within your Fabric tenant. So you can see who did what exactly and how and when. So you can see like a bunch of the dimensions, like the users, because you can see if this was a normal user or if it was like the agent. By agent, I mean like a service principal. You can observe also at which workspace the action was performed, what kind of the report was opened, and semantic model. The thing is that the last time I was looking at the activities, it was like 2 months ago, I believe. There were like 138 different activities, and more are coming because of the Fabric, and Fabric also allows lots of new activities. But basically, you can see who was, for example, downloading the data from a particular report, who was sharing the data, who did the comments in Power BI service, and so on. So this is one of the most important fact tables. And the other ones will be more like the fact tables, the snapshot fact tables. So here you have the information about the licenses and how do these licenses change day by day, because every single day, of course, you can have different users assigned different license. It's dynamic. The next extremely important, in my opinion, fact table is the fact table with the accesses. So here you can see all the accesses and all the users day by day with the accesses that they have to different Power BI objects within Fabric tenant. So you can see, for example, who has the access to the report, to semantic model, and what is the type of the access. Also, the type of the access is different per Power BI object, because you can have like admin, contributor, or member, or viewer possibilities of the access on the workspace level, but only viewer on the application. So everything, once again, is dynamic, and also the access is registers in both ways, in intra ID group registered way, and also the individual user. Row level security, as I mentioned. So here's the information about all row level securities, and they set up across all the elements in your Power BI tenant. The lineage, so you can tell how the objects are related in Power BI. I would say that this table is extremely useful for the other purposes, administrative purposes. The refreshes, so you can see what were the duration of all the refreshes of your semantic models, what were the errors, the common errors, and also the tenant settings. The tenant settings are changing quickly, so this is also like the snapshot fact table, and you can just follow it and see who did what kind of the change. I will show you later on the report how I'm using this table. Last but not least, extremely simple fact table is the date and NPS score. So you can just collect the feedback from, for example, Microsoft Forms and know what is the user's satisfaction from your Power BI platform. Okay, so I just show you very quickly like one of the possible data models of the monitoring tool. And right now let's go for the demo and with Power BI report. So as I mentioned at the beginning, here's the application. Actually, one of the demo application. All the data is dummy and fake. So sometimes it may not make much sense. But still, I will go through all of it, and I will explain you. So first of all, we have like the three sections, three different reports. One of them is governance, the second one is adoption, and the third one is for finance. Everything here is, is just the example, because the best thing, if you have like this your small data warehouse with all the data about your BI deployment, you can basically do any kind of the reporting that you wish to do. Like, for example, what I'm doing right now, it's also based on the information about the accesses and of the users. I'm creating like a huge landing page for the users, so they can just open one single Power BI report and they have all the reports in one place, because sometimes Power BI can be a little bit overwhelming for the usual business users. This is just one of the ideas, but here, okay, the first thing is this governance. So one of my reports that I'm using is the information about not used reports. Imagine that you have like 3,000 users, and there was like a huge self-service, and there was zero control the last 3 months in your Power BI environment. Most probably you will end up in the situation when you have like next to 10,000 of the reports that are very often either extremely rarely used, or there are duplicates, this kind of reports. Sales 2022 July, or sales 2022 March, the things like this, version final. So here, this is extremely operational, and also the user of this report is like an administrator. So you have lots of tables in this government section, but here what you can see, you have the information. If it's the workspace, is the enterprise workspace, or is it like the personal workspace? I will tell you one thing about the personal workspaces very soon. You have the ID of this object, the name, the report ID, the name of the report, the information if the report is already deleted or not, and when the report was created. Basically, this is the table. You can just pick up here in the calendar menu the time frame you want to have analyzed, plus some additional parameters. And you have the information how many reports were already deleted and how many reports are unused. And right now, funny thing, how am I using this report? I'm exporting this table to Excel, and later I'm using this report ID, and I'm running just PowerShell script that is just downloading all of these reports, putting it on the blob storage, and deleting them. So for the cleanup activities, it can be used. One additional thing about collecting the data also about deleting the reports from personal workspaces, because you may have also lots of reports that are still in the personal workspaces that were shared with the other members of your company, of your organization. And the thing is that you cannot act with the objects on the personal workspaces through PowerShell or the API. You need to manually assign yourself from the administrative panel the ability to go into personal workspaces of a given user. So what I did also, I did like the small Selenium script, like the agent, that was just clicking through administrative panel and assigning my account to the thousands of the accounts of the personal users. So later I can execute also the cleanup on the individual workspaces. The thing is that once you assign yourself to the personal workspace, this assignment lasts only 24 hours. So before every single cleanup, you must run the script and reassign yourself or the admin to all of these personal workspaces. Okay, next we have the role level security, and you might think that, okay, I have like the free semantic models, I perfectly know what kind of the role level security do I have with them, and it's right, you are correct, but the situation can drastically be changed if you have like hundreds of semantic models or even like the dozens. It's handy to have the information about how does actually role level security look like everywhere in one single place, because you can do the check. You can do the check if the role level security is applied correctly. So let's give it a try. Here we have the information about the role name, we have the information about the workspace semantic model and the semantic model itself, but also about the repos that are connecting to the semantic models and how to find them. Later we have the information if the role level security is assigned on the entry ID name or if it's assigned on the user display name. So actually it will be not display name, it will be more about the emails. Later we have the information about the table on which the role level security is assigned and the DAX filter about this table. Here we can see that actually the role created for these users are dummy because there is no table, no DAX expression. But here we can see that, for example, this role was assigned on this entry ID group name. And here in this entry ID group name and the selected date, we have this particular user. And the role level security was created on the fact table sales. The DAX expression is alt role to remove. So most probably should be removed. But here we can see that this security role was assigned correctly. We have like the DIM country and the country manager is called user principal. So this role should be validated. Later we have like the information maybe manager, yes. So most probably someone just made the error and constructed like the faulty security role. So this should be investigated. Okay. The other thing is, Power BI object access. Once again, a table, but I mentioned it's extremely operational. And here it's something that I love because it gives you all the information about the complete accesses to the Power BI tenant that you can imagine. So first of all, you need to pick up the date that you want to analyze because the accesses are dynamic and every single day can be different. And you can either check a particular user because you can pick up like the entry ID or user here. So you can focus if you want to analyze the groups, entry ID groups or the users. Later you can just either choose like the particular entry ID group or the user and just later see all the objects to which this group has the access to. So right now I can see that my Power BI all group with all the users included in this group in the particular day and the emails, I can see that they have the access to the report, this report, AF HQ summary, and the access type was linked. Plus I have the description of this access type because the description also comes from the documentation of Microsoft and it's hard-coded in the ETL as far as I remember. And here I can see that this user has the access on the workspace level to this workspace level, and the level of the access is viewer. Do we have anything else? Maybe you have the application here. Report, no, only with the report and the workspaces in this case. Let's just choose something different, or maybe all the groups. Maybe object type, report, workspace. Okay, so I cannot show you. Okay, because I just did the preselection. Okay, but you can also, for example, check the semantic models. And here you can see what kind of the access is on the semantic model. Here we can see the modify. And the description is also that attention this person can modify. And role level security exists on the semantic model, but it's overwritten by the possibility of the modification. So it comes very handy, also very useful in the case of the audits, like the audits that sometimes must be performed in the company and you must prove who had the access to what kind of objects and when. You have also like the object refreshes. I believe that maybe this is a little bit too old. Let me put 10 months here. 5 months. Okay. I'm sorry. I must have done something wrong and you don't have the data here. Or maybe in my semantic model something went wrong. But in general, instead of blank, you should have the information about the number of the refreshes, number of the failures. And here in this table, right now without the data, you have the information object type, because you have either data flow or semantic model. You have the information about the completed refreshes and the percentage of the completed refreshes in the given time frame. So the way I'm using it, very often you can go to the troublemakers to focus on the objects that are constantly failing the refresh, analyze them, and make the situation better. Additional information, also you have the duration of the refreshes, so you can also focus on the objects that take the longest to refresh. So they are also most probably impacting the underlying data layer and are costly, not effective. So you can also ask one of your team members to work on the optimization of the underlying data structures, maybe adding some words in the views and so on. We have the information about the capacities and the gateways. I believe that I had the same problem with the data, but I will just show you something which is personally more interesting for me. Okay, those self-service reports. So here, all the reports are only like the self-service, and you can have like the two categories of self-service depending how your small data warehouse is configured. First of all, you can have the personal workspaces, but also you can have the enterprise, like the normal workspaces, with, for example, the prefix self-service or business level self-service or SSM, like managed self-service. You can just add them into this report page and analyze what is happening within your self-service zone. And as you can see here, I have the information how many users minimum. So here I have the unique count of the users in the selected period and count of the activities. So if I'm doing the real Power BI governance and adoption, I can just put the numbers I want. And here I have the perfect list of the reports that should be migrated from the self-service zone to the enterprise zone. Because if like a self-service report is widely used in your organization, you shouldn't keep it as a self-service object, because what happens if the person responsible for its creation leaves the organization? This person did an amazing job, and you should just select this report and put it into the proper area, so even maybe more people in your organization can make use of it. Okay, let's go to the suggested business owners, and this is something also interesting. If you have like the perfect governance processes, it might not be that useful, but if you don't, or if you're starting to implement them, it's extremely useful. And I can just tell you a short story from the last year, actually, here. There was this situation that in one of the organizations that I'm working with, they needed to terminate a few SAP instances. But the first thing, they didn't know what is the impact on the reports. So what was handy was this report, actually, the lineage. To learn from the data sources, as you can see, what is the impact on the reports? Because from this external sources, the data sources, just filtering it and getting the list of the reports that are impacted by the termination of the SAP instances. Actually, this was the case that the data wasn't going in, and at ETL it was directly going into the Power API. So first thing, obtain the lineage. The second thing was, okay, good, I have the list of the reports, but are they used or not? If they are not used, I don't care. They can be terminated, nobody use it, nobody will complain. But if they are used, I should identify the business owners or suggested business owners, because I should decide what to do about this report that will be impacted. Should I find like the alternative data source for this report and invest some money into it? Or what should be done? And the thing is that how you can approach this, you are just taking a look at the reports, and you are trying to identify the user, like for example this one, with the highest number of the activities with the given report. In this way, most probably this will be the person you are looking for, and you should contact this person to decide what to do about the particular report. It saves you time, because you know who should be asked. You don't need to, just ask randomly a bunch of people, managers, and so on to find out the person. You have this information exactly here, and you can just go and ask the question. Okay, so I was talking a little bit about the suggestions and lineage I showed you in the meantime actually, but the other thing is also activity details. Once again, a table, I know, but extremely useful. Here is the complete list of all the activities performed by your users. So you can, choose the date, see what was the activity type, performed by whom, was it an employee, was it like the service principal, when did it happen? It's nice to know when you need to identify a little bit more what is happening, for example, within like the particular reports, workspace, or if you want also to check the behavior of a particular user group. So it helps you also to negotiate sometimes with the business, because if some business users are claiming that they are using a lot about they're using a lot particular report. In reality, you can just give them the list of the activities performed of this report and either confirm or negate the statements and move the discussion in the way that you want to make simply BI more beneficial for everything, for everyone. Okay, the tenant settings. Okay, once again, the date problem. Let me just pick up maybe the last that I have in this report. Okay, so you have like the perfect list of all the tenant settings that exist with the setup, with the entry ID groups, just to know who, once again, how it's configured on which entry ID group level. And the way I'm using it, it's like the new setting date, new setting, and setting date age, because sometimes you are having the new settings. And here you have a special filter. Right now, this report wasn't refreshed since like December, I believe. But the thing is that you can just check for the new settings to come, and to see if there are any new settings, you can go to the Power BI Fabric tenant and block this setting if you want to, because it may be like too much for your users. Okay, so it was about the governance monitoring. And right now we just show you like a few overview of the adoption. And adoption here, like I have the adoption from the two perspectives. This is the adoption from the perspective, let's say, more about like the head of BI data department, because you have only big numbers. I would just zoom a little bit here. So first thing is like the user's activity, and you are just taking a look. So, okay, how many active users do I have this year, or in the selected period, versus to the same period last year, and the delta of the performance. So this is the first thing. How many users with access do I have? Because this is also important. How many users have the access to the Power BI objects, and what was the number last year, and what is the percentage of the active users? So this is something that actually this percentage also is interesting to keep in mind. If you are starting your governance within Power BI, interesting thing are those certified object usage. I was mentioning them at the beginning of the session. So the first thing is just to know how many certified objects do you have, but the other thing is what is the percentage of the actions executed within these certified objects. Because if this percentage is growing, you can say that you have better governance. Because more and more reports, more and more semantic models are becoming certified. Certification, of course, it's a process, and you should also implement the process which is, let's say, robust and correct. But the more certified objects you have, and the better is the consumption of these objects, or let's say that your Power BI deployment or your BI deployment, it gets more and more trustworthy. Here I have this similar session about the workspace usage. So you have the information about enterprise workspace actions, all workspace actions, and the percentage of enterprise workspace usage versus personal. Once again, depends to you how do you work into your deployment, because you can compare here like the usage, like the actions executed within enterprise workspaces against personal, but also you can just check up the categories of the workspaces and, for example, compare enterprise versus managed self-service, business-led self-service, or anything you wish. The next thing is like the number of the Power BI champions. And how to identify Power BI champion? It's extremely simple because Power BI champion is just, once again, it can be just a snapshot fact table with the information if the user in the particular day was already champion or not. And the thing is about definition of the Power BI champion. And it comes back to your governance and adoption policy, because believe me or not, some advanced users can be relatively easily found because they used like one of the simple options in Power BI service. Like, for example, putting a comment, sharing a dashboard, connecting with Excel, and using the pivot tables. It's really small percentage of people who are doing these actions, and you can, if you want, classify those people as Power BI champions, but you can also classify only the people who created a report. You can classify only the people who actually create the report, Power BI champions, and let's say this report is used by 15 other people. The definitions, are simple. The implementation is simple as well because it's just a flag. And finally, you can see what you need. And the NPS score as well as what I was mentioning, plus a few line trends. So this is like this global overview, but you can also go to the more granular activities and check how many users do you have on the particular workspaces, semantic models, reports. This is just basically like the drill down here. And you can see who actually is using what kind of reports. Here we have last 2 years EMEA, how many different actions performed over there, the details, user activities versus accesses, plus the trend. So this is mostly focused, I would say, around the business owners, product owners, who are working in the particular set or subset of the reports. And you want, for example, let's say you are working for the pricing department, and you want more and more people actively using your Power BI pricing reports. So here you can go to this page, check who is using, who is not using, contact the best users, ask them about the feedback, what should be included, how to make their life easier, and also contact the people who have the access, for example, and they do not use actively Power BI reports. Maybe they even don't know that they have the access. Maybe it's too difficult for them. Maybe they didn't receive the proper training sessions. You don't know, but thanks to this information, you can just target those users and work on your Power BI adoption and to make it higher to squeeze more return on investment. Last but not least, this is like the small report page about the finances. And here you can see, for example, I selected here the department, which is accounting department. Once again, the departments you can get from a Graph API. So you can see on the department levels, how many active users do you have, what kind of the license type, how many licenses are over there, and how much do you pay for it. And this also helps you to identify inactive licenses. So for example, here you can see that those users were not using Power BI actively, so you can make a saving of, wow, $18. $18 may not be impressive, but I will share you once again one story from this December. Another organization I'm working with, we were approached by Microsoft. Hey guys, you have like 500 Power BI premium per user licenses. It's good for you to migrate to Fabric because it will be a little bit cheaper. So the idea from Microsoft was nice, brilliant, but later what we did, we checked up actually the activity of these users. And it turned out that among 500 users, around roughly 200 users were not active in the last 12 months. So we just cut the licenses off. From them, 200 times $20 times 12 months, it's a few thousands. It's like 30,000 euro dollars that can be saved. So already always something, for some corporation, maybe not interesting if you are having E5 license or it's not your budget. I understand that you don't care, but sometimes it may be interesting. But anyway, we migrated to Fabric and we do not regret it. Okay. So, though this was the presentation, just keep in mind that those are only the examples. of the reports that you can build. You can adapt anything to your particular needs. The most important thing is to have the data. And in order to have the data, I strongly encourage you to start the scrapping, start getting the information to small data warehouse. And you can, this data warehouse about the usage of the Power BI platform can be extended. If you don't have the information of your users in the Graph API, but you may have this information in the other system, like HR system, just get this information, put it into your data warehouse, and you can enhance the capacities of your analytics and just increase the adoption of your Power BI. Okay, so we covered the demo, we covered like a few examples, and just at the end, how can you use? I already mentioned a little bit all of these cases. So, but for like the regular administration and adoption, you can of course use it for the cleaning up. And actually, I use it for the cleaning up. You can use it also for the auditing purposes of your Power BI/Fabric deployment, driving the adoption, also driving BI and data strategy, especially the migration cases of the underlying systems, but also in general, because knowing how are used your data assets, you know where to put the priorities and how to squeeze the most of the value from your Power BI deployment. Even right now in the era of AI and maybe the chatbots, stuff like this, you know where should you locate your money to bring the most of the value on your company. Just please remember that you can group the users like the usual users operational level. You can also put the users in the other basket, let's say like the top management, focus on them, take a look at what they are doing, and maybe provide some kind of the better analytical tools just for them. Yeah, so I believe that this is the end for today. Thank you a lot, and I wish you a nice day.